Welcome back to the Italian Film Buff podcast. How are we doing, guys? I hope something amazing is happening in your life because it's nice. Because it's a nice thing to say, but also a nice thing to think about other fellow men and women and kids and cats even. But anyway, welcome back to another episode. I hope you are having fun with this podcast. In case you are having fun listening to a random Italian guy talking about movies, share the podcast, vote for the podcast, go to other movie enthusiasts and say, hey, there is this guy. He's Italian. He talks about movies. Because yeah, why not? Listen to him. But anyway, let's move forward. This is the worst way to try to convince people to listen to a podcast. But anyway, I'm doing it with passion. The Italian way. Anyway. So, in this episode, I'm gonna talk a little bit about weapons, but I want to talk about a little bit about what's happening in the movie industry briefly. I'm gonna have a brief conversation about this because I want to talk about elevated horror later on as well and the new Resident Evil movie. But anyway, apparently, allegedly, Warner Bros. Is willing to invest way more into a new IP instead in pursuing this same old IP investment. And I believe it's a good thing. If this is true, so it's allegedly this thing is happening, being said by David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers. But if it's true, it's fantastic. It's long overdue, to be honest, but apparently the reason are the very good result of Sinners. We talk about Sinners back in the past. The run of Sinners at the box office was amazing. I forgot to check out Sinners on Box Office Mojo. Let's go check this out. Box Office Mojo, because I totally forgot. I put up all the stuff, but I forgot about Sinners to check what was the run at the movie theater. Anyway, it ended up collecting 365 millions worldwide, if the numbers are accurate here on Box Office Mojo. But it went super well because they spent 90 million for the movie. It's a horror film. It's not from an IP, it's an original movie. Those numbers are insane. And domestically, it earned 278 million, so it's an astonishing result. And I want to remember, I'd like to underline how Variety basically underplay and diminish the movie result at the beginning, say, oh, the movie is going well, but it costs 90 million. The level of stupidity behind this movie, it's behind the way they talk about Sinners, it's insane. They should have understood how in a way, how ambitious and well produced was the movie and how good was doing at the box office. But for some reason the box office result was undermined in a way, but I don't know how. But anyway, this happened. But anyway, it was astonishing. The movie, it's fantastic. I talked in the previous episode about Sinners. And then the other good movie was F1, produced with Apple. And at the moment, I haven't watched the movie, I gotta be honest, but at the moment the movie gross 571 millions at the international box office. It earned more internationally because apparently it earned 178 million under 178.6 million at the domestic box office and 392.5 million internationally. So it was a movie that was sold very well outside the United States, but doesn't matter, the result is a good result. It's a great result. And the other movie that it's the main character in this episode is Weapons. Was released on the 8th of August, in at least in the United States, and it earned so far 43.5 million domestically and 71.8 million in total worldwide. So internationally it earned 28.3 million. At the time of my recording, it's the 12th of August, and I have the data from the 8th of August till the 10th of July. So those are the data at the time of my recording. So I most likely the movie is gonna earn way more money, and apparently, if I remember correctly, it cost just 40 million to be made, if I remember correctly, or even less. I don't remember how much it cost. Weapons budget, I believe it cost 38 million, so around 40 million. Well, let's talk about this for a second, because on the other hand, speaking of a franchise, if Jurassic World, the new Jurassic Park, I don't remember what's the title, went pretty well, Fantastic Four earned just 425 million worldwide. Wasn't well received as expected. But anyway, it's a story that we are kind of seeing more and more happening in the Marvel sphere of the movie business. But anyway, let's keep the discussion to the idea of producing original IP instead new IP, because on the other hand we have Bob Iger, that I don't like Bob Iger, I gotta be honest. I think he's a massive cunt. Sorry if I use this Dantesque, poetic expression to define Bob Iger, but I think he's a massive cunt. And I believe that it's a miracle of the American of the American industry, one of those wonder of the American capitalist, that he has a job. Not because I am a commie or a leftist, like many of you will probably think, because I talk about because I talk in this way about the production system, but because I think that it tends to promote incompetence. Lately, we're seeing this more and more happening. But anyway, Bob Iger said after Elio disappointing release at the box office that they are willing to go to be more inclined to produce a well-known IP. And as I said before, I'm gonna have an episode where I'm gonna talk about this, and I'm gonna talk about something that can actually save Disney, but I don't know why they're not thinking about doing it, because most likely, since they are managed by a massive cunt, this is way difficult to achieve as a thought, because it doesn't know what he's doing. Because I want to remember, many people will think, why you have a beef with Bob Iger? Well, the beginning of his career was, how can I say, was him shutting down Twin Peaks, basically imposing to Mark Frost and David Lynch to reveal Laura Palmer's killer at basically the beginning of the second season, because they couldn't get the fact that was still a mystery. So they said, no, it's a stupid thing, because the whole show, it's basically based on that. And he was like, no, you gotta reveal it, people need to know. And the show was killed, basically. A genius. And the rest of his career is not like he's having great intuition. Maybe he's very good in managing books, numbers, but I believe if you are in charge of Disney, you should have at least a good understanding, a decent understanding of producing arts, understanding numbers and stuff like that, but I think it doesn't. So I'm gonna close this parenthesis soon, but anyway, I think those companies, they should have somebody checking the numbers and somebody very powerful taking control of the creative side. They can't have those people running stuff like Disney. It's insane. But anyway, the thing is that um, I believe that for so long they blamed the audience because the new IP were not box office success. The problem is that what I think happened multiple times with multiple instances. I'm gonna speak like in a broader sense. I'm not gonna go in a specific example, but the things that Hollywood has done, since they are managed by uh, a capitalist that they want just to make a lot of money, spending as little as they can. I think that the only kind of way of producing was like, okay, this thing is going well, let's mass produce this. So at some point there was a sort of nostalgia wave, so let's produce sequel or requel or remake because it worked once, we're gonna keep doing it. So this is the way they think, and it doesn't work, or at least it works for a while and then people get bored. And moreover, in the process of getting bored the general audience, you lose a shitload of people that stop going to the cinema because they say, oh, the only thing that they show are just those things, and the original story are poorly distributed, they're not investing, and they don't go to the cinema. And going to the cinema, it's an annoying and obnoxious experience. So you lose audience in the process. So by the time you reach the stage where you say, okay, we should stop producing this according to this wave that we thought it was it was making a lot of money. By the time you reach that stage, you have not just lost the whole audience or big part of it, but you lost a shitload of people that used to go to the theater. So you managed to make a huge impact on your audience. You destroyed your audience completely. And I think they've done it over and over again till the moment in time where we are now, that it's not just because of the pandemic and what happened there, but they destroy the will of the audience to go to the movie theater. That's what they've done. And they kept saying, oh, but people don't want to go to see original stories. But then weapons come out, a shitload of people go to the movie theater. Formula One, the movie, comes out, a lot of people go to the movie theater. Sinners comes out, people go to the movie theaters and watch the movie, and they enjoy the movie and they talk about the movie. And there are many other instances. The problem is that if the only thing that you must produce are tentpole, remake, requel, people are going to watch that because it's what you're feeding to the audience. To me, it's amazing how those producers, they don't see this pattern that is part of their job. It's like for television. It's like nobody, if you go to the general audience, go back in time machine, I go back in time and I pitch Breaking Bad to the general audience, people are gonna laugh at my face. No, I don't want to watch a show about a high school teacher starting to deal in drugs because he has cancer. I don't want to watch that. The story tells how the story went tells a different result, because it doesn't work like that. Most of the time, the audience has no clue about what they want and what they will like, because it's not their job. It's because we don't know as an audience, because it's the job of the creative, the people who create stories and universe and entire universes and plots and words, to create something so compelling that even the simplest plot that can look dull is gonna result amazing, because there is struggle, there is drama, there is humanity, there are universal meaning, there are conflicts. So you can't predict that. You can't do that. The only way you can do is try. And sometimes you put yourself in a hands of a very, very good creative mind, and sometimes it doesn't, that does goes very well, sometimes it goes very bad, very badly, very poorly, and you're gonna fail, because entertaining, this is something that we gotta put in our mind, can't be predicted at the very moment. Even with algorithm AI, the only thing that can predict it's how much you watch something, and it's gonna feed more and more of that something. But it's not like they are predicting what I like. It's like they are intercepting what I like, and they just give me more of that. So they are doing faster the same thing that broke the system before. We are doing a damage, but twice or 10 times faster. Wow. It's not a great achievement. It's the dumbest achievement ever. So this is my take on the thing. And what this industry should do is understand what's going very well, or at least not, sorry, understand, I mean, what the industry is supposed to do is understand who's a great creative mind, and try to feed those creative mind every resource in order to be as brilliant as they can, and try to do something amazing. Let's talk about even, I don't know, Severance. Who could predict Severance? Nobody. In fact, if you check how the show came out, basically Ben Stiller took the pilot for Severance from pile of there are basically, I don't remember how it's called, the list, but it's sort of a list where all the stuff that they got by the end of the industry, they were like, oh, okay, seems nice, seems a good idea, can be produced, maybe will never will, but it's sitting there in an archive, basically. I'm explaining this very badly, very poorly, but it's just to give a broader sense of how it's working. And then Ben Stiller just happened to read it. He was like, it's genius, I gotta produce this before somebody else does. But it was sitting there and nobody was picking it up. It's not like somebody read it and say, oh, this is brilliant, I gotta produce it, and I produce it. Ben Stiller did it. That's how it works. But anyway, can be predicted. It's something unpredictable. But anyway, I believe that we should invest in original stories, because it's the way that you basically challenge people, you interest people in say, oh gosh, I want to go to the movie theater because there is this movie, it's insane, I don't know what it is about. Then here and there, salt of the earth of the industry are also very famous of IP. I'm not gonna deny that, because it's gonna be, I mean it will be massively stupid on my end deny that IP that are already existing are salt of the earth of the industry. It's fine, you gotta do that from time to time. The problem is when this is the only thing that you produce as an industry. That's the problem. But anyway, speaking of which, speaking of IP, I want to talk a little bit about Zach Kreger and his plans. I wanted to talk about Wednesday a little bit before, to be honest, but let's talk about Wednesday another time. I changed my plan. Let's talk about Resident Evil and Zach Kreger, and let's give the whole segment to this guy. So to this amazing director screenwriter, because I like many of you, I knew him, I know him, I became his friend when he came out with Barbarian. I believe that Barbarian It's a very brilliant horror, as much, probably not as much, but is as brilliant. uh, I believe Weapons is way more brilliant. But anyway, they are both uh, giving an understanding of how the poetry of this director works. And I believe it's amazing. So basically, um, even Barbarian, it's like a movie that gives you the idea that he wants to tell horror stories but subverting in his own way the genre in order to create something that it's a Zach Greger film. It's gonna be in the screenplay and in the ways shot, the mood, the situation, the way it blends with other genre in the genre. It's his own kind of thing, and it's amazing. But anyway, I believe that Barbarian was a great movie, and I believe that he can do something very great with Resident Evil. We talk about IP, existing IP, because Resident Evil has been around in cinema for ages. The first Resident Evil, I think it was from the early 2000, 2002, and it was a decent movie. Decent. 6 out of 10. It was a bad Resident Evil adaptation, but was an okay kind of for the time. I think if I rewatch it today, I would dislike it very much. I'm gonna be honest. It's a bad zombie movies. It's a sort of sci-fi zombie movies. It's kind of bad. But it's not as bad as Welcome to Raccoon City. That is a very bad movie. I think that even the worst Resident Evil adaptation in cinema of the old saga, it's anyway slightly better than Welcome to Raccoon City. Welcome to Raccoon City takes a massive crap on the legacy of Resident Evil. As lore and on the character, it's, oh my good god. It's terrible. I'm sorry. I laugh because I don't. I mean, we're talking about movies. We are just having fun. But I mean, the movie is outrageous for how bad it is. But anyway, the previous saga has been around for ages, and the movies are from okay, the first one, and then bad. Oh my god, this is so bad, and it started to go up. I believe that they went downhill pretty fast in the way they are directed, written, the way they act in the movie, in the way it doesn't make any sense. And Resident Evil, it's an over-the-top saga by itself, but I believe that according to what Zach Greger says, he said something in an interview to Inverse, he has a good idea of what he wants to do. So he said that, I'm going to read it from Variety that took a couple of snippets here and there of this interview. He says, I'm the biggest worshipper of the games, so I'm telling a story that is a love letter to the games and follow the rules of the games. And then he said that he basically wants to create a project that is, I quote, outside of the character of the games. It is obedient to the lore of the games, it's just a different story. I'm not going to tell Leon's story, because Leon's story is told in the games. Fans already have that. I mean, I like this approach. I like this idea that he's having, because to be honest, I don't know if you ever played the game. I'm a big fan of the game. Most of them, except Resident Evil 6, that it's pure trash. Not storytelling, also storytelling wise, but as a game, as a Resident Evil game, it's trash. The fire dumpster of a game. But I'm a big fan of the Resident Evil saga, and Resident Evil, it was born from George Romero's zombie genre, but is contaminated by the Japanese wave of conceiving monsters and horror, and so the tendency is to go over the top very fast. And I believe that the suspension of disbelief, even in the genre, speaking of horror, in Resident Evil, it's all over the place. It's so campy in some instances. It's so ridiculous in some other. And I'm saying this in a very good way. Like even the first Resident Evil, you have zombie shark in the laboratory. The fact that there is a laboratory in the basement basically of a mansion, the fact that in the second one you have the police station that is basically inside a museum, or at least is a museum converted to be a police station, in order to make sense of the enigmas and stuff like that. Even the lore of the game, if you check, I don't know if you play the game, and if you play the game in a way that you read everything you find, the environmental storytelling basically. So when you find a piece of paper and there is something about the lore of the game, so sometimes you read stuff written by the science team, by the Umbrella Corporation, and they go like, oh, we want to create a new elevated life form, it's gonna surpass the human beings, and basically are the tyrants. And then you read the description, and the tyrant are basically dumb, huge, dumb. They basically have no brain, and they destroy everything. It's like, so this is the next step. So the evolution is just like the human being as it is, but basically an animal, a complete animal. So this is the further step, so to destroy any sort of any idea of intelligence, and just go toward the brute force, and that's it. This is the next step. And you go like, in a way, and it's not like there is an idea of a sense of a genre kind of tale, like Frankenstein, the idea of building a monster because you're crazy and losing control of it, and go toward telling a moral about humankind. No, it's just because the pure idea of having a monster smashing everything, and other kind of mood that you have in Japanese horror, in the way the Japanese conceive horror. And I love it. It's insane, doesn't make any sense, sometimes it's all over the place, but I love it. It's fun, and it's fine in a game, in a movie. Even if you want to adapt the first Resident Evil or the second Resident Evil, the problem is that the story, I think it's very difficult to adapt those stories. They are amazing in a video game. In a movie theater, they will sound weird and kind of crazy. There will be too much over the top. And the idea of saying, okay, we're gonna respect the lore of the universe of Resident Evil, but we are gonna do our own thing. And I hope they're going to avoid to have those moments where the whole movie is like, oh, a leaker, oh my god, there is this thing like in the video game. I hope they're gonna respect the lore, but they're gonna give an identity, a specific identity to the movie. And I trust him. I trust Zach Gregor, because I think he's a great director. I think he has great taste. He's a very good screenwriter. And I think that with Weapons, he demonstrated once again his value. And I believe in him. I believe he's very great. He's one of the most interesting directors that came out in the last couple of years. And now I'm going to talk about Weapons. Written, directed and co-produced by Zach Gregor. The film starred Josh Brolin, Julia Garner, Alden Ehrenreich. I don't remember how to pronounce his last name. I am sorry. Austin Abrams, Kerry Christopher, Benedict Wong, and Amy Madigan. So, what's the story of Weapons? I'm gonna just tell the basic story, and then I'm never gonna mention it again. I'm just gonna talk broadly about the movie. So the movie talks about this small town in the United States where one day the teacher show up at school, and there is just one kid, and all the other kids are gone of that specific class. And what happened is that basically at 2:17 in the morning, they woke up in the middle of the night. We see them because people have ring camera and stuff like that. They have camera all over the place in the United States. It's a very unsafe place where to live. I'm super scared of the United States. When I was a kid, I was more fascinated, but as a grown-up, I go like, But anyway, those camera, they show those little kids just flying off those houses to never be seen in the middle of the night. And so nobody knows what's going on. So the story starts right after that. Not right after, but basically a month after that, where the case is going nowhere. Police is embarrassed. They have no idea what's going on. FBI has no idea what's going on. And we don't follow the law enforcement investigating, but the teacher and a couple of characters surrounding her. So why do I like this movie? Let's start from one point. He does something interesting with the genre, with the horror genre. Why I say that? Because in the last couple of years, we have this renaissance of the horror as a genre, because there was this concept of elevated horror, something that, to be honest, I don't like. The concept itself, not the fact that there are those movies. So basically, with elevated horror, we identified those movies like Hereditary, stuff by Ari Aster and Eggers. Those horror that basically came out from the A24 kind of production company and similar company, where basically Get Out and stuff like that, where we talk a lot about trauma, childhood trauma, social stuff and stuff like that, and we go a little bit more into the humankind. We go a little bit more deeper in those in those stuff. But I never liked it because it's a way to say elevated horror. We were ashamed of the genre because horror is like, it's horror, it's stupid, it's dumb. And so thank God somebody did elevated horror that it's finally cinema. And to me, it doesn't make any sense. To me, I think there was a downfall of the genre. I think that I identify the downfall of the genre with Paranormal Activity. Paranormal Activity was a disaster. I was in a movie theater. I was still living in Italy, and I remember it was the most boring and annoying and obnoxious movie theater experience that I ever had. It's basically a YouTube video, but we still didn't know that the future was that. But it's a YouTube scary video in a movie theater, and it's annoying. It's very annoying, and it's boring, and it's cheap, and it's not brilliant at all. It was well put on the market, but I remember it was so boring that it was the boringest doesn't exist, the most boring night that I had in a movie theater, but the most fun, because at some point toward the third act, a guy screamed at the top of his lung in the movie theater, and everybody jumped on the seats, and then he said, now something happened. He was so bored that he had to scream. So something was finally happening. But anyway, and from there, the producer said, okay, we can spend cheap money and have a lot of fun with the revenue at the box office. And in a way, they did that. A lot of horror movie, even the Conjuring saga, the whole thing about the ghost, and then we have if we have so many ghost channel on YouTube now, I believe it's also because of that. Because how can you do a ghost? You can do an entire movie with a couple of furniture moving around, and it's super spooky. No, it's not. And so in a way we convinced the audience that horror was just cheap jump scare, and that's it. And there was a downfall of the genre, but apparently whoever created this elevated horror term completely forgot about Shining, about half of David Cronenberg's career, about Fire Walk with Me by David Lynch. They forgot about it's amazing. It's one of my favorite horror movies ever made, Fire Walk with Me. But anyway, there are so many horror out there. John Carpenter, half of his career, the beginning of his career, we have amazing horror. George Romero himself, because we have in a good horror story since the dawn of time, we always create a monster to tell something. Apparently, we are so not accustomed to this that apparently even in the most popcorn movie like Superman, like it's just an entertainment film, we forgot that stories forever, since the ancient Greek, they always had the Odyssey. The Odyssey has a morality inside of it. They want to tell something to the humankind, to the human race. Horror as well. Frankenstein, Dracula, there are all monsters that bring with them something. You create a monster because you want to talk about something. And sometimes you have a deeper meaning, sometimes you have just a theme. John Carpenter said that as well when questioned about the elevated horror, the idea of elevated horror. And sometimes you have a theme because you want to just make something that it's enjoyable for the audience, and sometimes you have something deeper because you have something to say, and use the genre because horror basically is a genre itself, because it's showing, it allows you to show stuff that usually you don't show. You talk about the idea of dying and the frailty of the human being in a way that it's more gruesome and cruel, and you talk about myth and whatever you want to talk, something that it's paranormal. You talk about something that doesn't exist because you want to go there, and something that it's in the dark, and it's super fun. And horror is amazing because of that. And to me, the idea that somebody can identify elevated horror compared to other horror movies doesn't make any sense to me personally. And in the last couple of years, we forgot that we can go to watch movies, horror movies, just for the sake of having a good horror story. And weapons, so I finally closed the circle, weapons, it's exactly that, a very good horror story. And it's not a shame to be just a very good horror story. It's like Stephen King. It's just a great tale. It's great storytelling in a horror genre, and I absolutely love it. It's amazing. It's the fun of telling a cruel, bloody, and over the top in some part horror story. So, and this is what I like the most about the concept behind the movie, and in a way how he does that in the same way a little bit as with Barbarian. So the genre, the horror genre, is mixed with something else. So in this movie you have comedy, you have element of comedy, you have element of something that is absurd, over the top, you have supernatural, you have some the most kind of how can I say, dreamy sequence with a dreamlike sequence. You have moment with pure horror, you have moment of pure violence, you have those elements all together, and you have mystery. For the love of God, in a movie you have mystery. What I love about Stanley Kubrick and David Lynch, they had this idea together, the same idea, the same concept, that in every movie you need to have an element of mystery. You need to have something that it's an unanswered question. Stephen King says the same thing. At the beginning of Alan Wake, a great video game, they put a quote from Stephen King, and he says this, that explanations are boring, are basically an antithesis, antithetic, if I remember correctly, to the idea of a horror story. And it's true. You gotta give explanation, but till some degree, some stuff they gotta stay in the dark. And this movie does something amazing, because in the last arc, in the third act, basically gives you the general explanation for some question, but it's not gonna give the solution for everything. It's also a little bit bitter in the way it ends in some ways, because anyway it started like an urban legend and it finished like an urban legend in the way I see it. This is my own interpretation, because it starts with this kid telling about this story, a story in this small town, and whatever happens, whatever I said before, it's in like the first couple of minutes on the movie, and then the movie starts from there. And I love it because the urban legend, they have an element of, you don't know what's going on, you can figure it out, you can have an explanation, but there is something that it's untold and you don't know what it's going on there. There are so many things that you can elaborate on those kind of stories, and it's funny to see that unfold, because then the movie used the Rashomon system. So you start developing the story from the perspective of the teacher, that everybody hates her. She's like, everybody thinks she has done something to those kids in order to make them disappear. And you follow her till some point, and then the story stops. You focus on another character and you follow them to another point. The things that I liked about the Rashomon system, let's call it like that, by Rashomon, it's the movie by Akira Kurosawa that basically used this system to have different point of view of the same story, is that it's not boring the way it was. It's been used in the movie. What I mean is that all the characters, they don't start from the same point and they stop at the same point. They start from different point, not just different angles, but different point in the story, and they stop in different point in the story. And the characters, they have their own mood. So for example, with the teacher, played by Julia Garner, she's fantastic in the movie. Basically, she's more like a horror story. You have tension, you have terror, you have fear. At some point you have a moment of comedy, but comedy, don't think about the kind of cheap comedy that we had lately in the movie, so a pop reference joke, stuff like that. No, it's comedy like weird, funny comedy moment, kind of Coen Brothers in a way moment. And then she has a moment that it's kind of weird and funny, even if it's very scary. And then you follow the character played by Josh Brolin, and it's more, you go more in the dreamlike sequence. You go, and it's super scary, the dreamlike sequence, and it's so well made and so amazing. And Josh Brolin moment, it also gives you a different vibe of the story, because the movie is very good in giving you different angled in a way that you think, oh, maybe the story is about this. The mystery of the missing children, it's this. No, maybe it's that. No, maybe it's these other things. The movie throw you different ideas, and then there is one that it's the actual resolution, but it's funny in this way. And Josh Brolin character at some point, since there is this contamination by different and interpretation of the horror that it's broader, and I'm gonna articulate more on this, there is a moment that it does something that when I watch some movie, I go like, why? If I was that character and I had that kind of experience, I will probably react like this. And Josh Brolin, he reacts exactly like this. And the whole movie theater probably thought that, because we were all laughing. And it's amazing. And then there are other characters. And as I said, there are different genres that make a step into the movie. And what I always discuss when I talk about horror is that horror, it's not just to scare you. This idea that horror, it's as I said, I believe that movie like Paranormal Activity gave the cheap idea of what a horror movie is. It's not a fun house of terror where you go there, there's a jump scare and you scream. It's not about that. Horror, as I said before, is to tell stuff that you can tell In a drama, for example, in a drama, you're never gonna see something paranormal like a demon tearing apart a guy from from limb to limb. You're never gonna see that. You're never gonna see a guy stepping into something like a dream-like sequence and having, let's talk about David Lynch. I don't know. Um, Folks from another dimension that are gods like, having fun with the human beings and being pure evil. You're never gonna see those kind of stuff in the other movies. Horror is to explore that side of the human experience, something that it's mystique, that it's fear, that it's darkness. To go back to the man in the cave that used to stare in the dark. He had no idea what was going on in the world because he was a caveman and he was scared. He had this idea that there was danger outside, it was dark, he was scared. That basically, let's say, basic idea of the human experience, that kind of ancestral idea of why we are alive and how we live and stuff like that. In fact, in the movie, the most scary experience in the movie, I'm not gonna spoil anything, I'm just gonna say that there is this kid, the only one survived. When he goes home, you see the door of his house, he opens, and it's black, it's pure darkness, and he steps into the door and the door closed. To me, it's super scary. the idea this door in the dark closing down, it's super scary, because you go like, he's going to school the day after, but why stepping so willingly into pure darkness? Because it's, as I said before, it's that instinct from when we were cavemen. You don't do that. You don't step in the darkness. Why is doing that? It's compelling. You want to know, and that's the other mechanism. You want to know what's in the dark, but you're super scared, so you want to go, but you don't go, but then you go. This thing. So horror is to cover those kind of part of the human experience. It's not like just scare you. And the movie is like, as I said, like Stephen King like in a way. So you have character that comes from different angles. Some are very funny. There is the junkie, the whole story of the junkie and the policeman. It's fantastic. I love it, and it's perfect because it's something very grounded, something relatable, that it's stepping into something completely crazy like this horror story, and it's fantastic. And this is how you make horror stories believable in a way, because they are unbelievable, but if you give to the audience an element of something that it's realistic, we're gonna believe in it, because this is reality. I recognize this because this is reality, and then something crazy happens. And as I said, the movie has element of comedy that are over the top, crazy, but not stupid. They never brings you away from the terror. That is the problem of comedy badly or poorly used in other genre, when they distract you too much from the main genre, when the comedy distracts you too much from horror, from action, from other stuff, and you stop believing the main character and what's going on, because suddenly they are too goofy, too stupid, and the mirror shatters. In this case, it's not like that, and I love it. And I believe that the movie, because of this system, the way it's well written, the way in the third act, every unanswered question is answered. But then, as I said before, some stuff are unanswered, because of course you can't know everything, and you gotta leave element of mystery, to the audience. And some stuff make totally sense that they are not covered by the movie, they are unanswered, and the ending is a little bit bitter, a little bit unanswered, but it's satisfying, and I love it for that. And I believe the movie is brilliant because of that as well. So I believe the movie is insanely well directed. For example, at the beginning you start with this voiceover of the kid introducing the story, and the way it's directed, you follow basically Julia Garner, but you never see her. You never see her from a close-up. You never see her face directly. She's always you see her from behind, from afar. You never get too close to the main character, and then suddenly, when the story actually starts, you move the attention toward Julia Garner, the teacher. So you move the attention to her. But I like the way it's directed, the way it's written. I love the whole experience, and mostly, I'm gonna say that once more, I love the fact it's an horror movie. It's not going toward this idea, I'm gonna tell you an horror story, and the horror story is gonna teach you the importance of be kind to another. No, it's a pure horror story, and I loved it. And now I want to talk about a couple of things that are spoilers. So if you haven't watched the movie, please vote the podcast, share it with some friends of yours, and whatever. Let's let's make this podcast happen. I do it for fun, but if I can manage to find other cinema enthusiasts to share this with, I'm gonna be happier. Anyway, do it, do your magic, and comment. The comment section here on Spotify, it's there because you can write your idea and stuff like that. Do it in a constructive way if you can. Try to turn on your brain, but anyway, it's there. Now, spoiler part. 3, 2, 1, spoilers. So, a couple of things that I loved. I love that they used the Deep Red by Dario Argento kind of system at the beginning of the movie. So I'm not gonna spoil Deep Red, but basically in Deep Red it's fantastic, and it was more fantastic because it was done in the 70s, if I remember correctly. But basically, there is a serial killer in the film, and you see him. At the beginning of the movie, you see the serial killer. You see the who is guilty of all those murders, but you don't realize it. The thing is that back in the day, you didn't have the technology to go back and say, oh, let me check that scene, because at the end of the movie, the main character goes like, 1 second, but I saw something. And then he goes back and he says, oh my God, I saw him, he was there. And he realized who the actual killer is. And you couldn't verify if the scene was actually like that, or if just they put at the end this thing. But well, when VHS start to hit the market, people go check, and actually you could see it. At the beginning of the movie, you see the killer. You just don't realize. In a way, this movie does the same. So what is the solution of the film? Is that it's up to something paranormal, like ghost-like entity, like a movie suggests in More Than One Nightmare, like for Josh Brolin or even the teacher character. Is something like that the solution? No, it's a technology, because at some point Josh Brolin, there is this scene, he checked the trajectory of the kids he know were basically recorded by the Ring cameras, and you see that, for example, his son is running towards something, and he checked this antenna, and for a second you go like, well, maybe it's a technology. The movie is called Weapons. No, it's not like that. At some point there is a scene with cordyceps. They talk about cordyceps, and you go like, wait a second, The Last of Us became famous and now it's a cordyceps kind of thing? No. The solution is that there is a witch. And the movie tells you that because on Julia Garner car, somebody writes in paint, Josh Brolin, then we understand that it's him, he writes with paint witch. Why he does that? Because they hate her, whatever, but she's not a witch. Nobody believes she's actually a witch, but he does that. And actually, the whole thing is because there is a witch. And I'm in love with how those characters, they are complementary to one another. I love the cop. I love the whole cop with the junkie, the thing when he goes down to chase him, and then he takes those 3 empty syringe and he used them to stab him in the face. After that, he was scared because he basically he already had a grudge toward the junkie bee, because he was frisking him, and he said, I'm not gonna be stung by something in your pocket. No, absolutely not. The first things he does, he put his hand in the pocket and he got stung by one of the syringe. And he's a junkie, so he's afraid that he has AIDS, hepatitis, or whatever. So it's amazing, the dynamic there. And it's amazing as well what he does in the movie, because of what happens with the junkie, and how the junkie, it's like not giving the solution to the authorities, because there is this whole thing going on. So the movie, it's well tied together. The characters are amazing, they are funny, they are the whole comedy tropes for the whole thing between the policeman and the junkie are amazing. They are perfect, and as I said before, those characters are the one that makes you believe to the reality of the movie. I believe even Josh Brolin is perfect to be the father of the kid that is gone, and he's just a contractor, and it's perfect because it's believable. Okay, and I love as well also the way everything is tied to the ending. I think it's perfect. It's fantastic, because at some point you go like, wait a second, if the parents, they are hypnotized when they question the kid who went there to the police, the police didn't search the house or whatever, everything makes sense at the end, but you don't have the solution for what happened right after. I mean, at the end there is a solution, because the kid, of course, is not stupid. He has seen the witch perform the ritual, so he knows what he has to do in order to defeat the witch and have the revenge of the kids toward the witch. And it's super cruel because they tear him apart. It's amazing. The scene is fantastic. But of course, he's a kid. He doesn't have any magic understanding of the magic realm. So the fact that at the end everything doesn't go back to normal, but as they say at the beginning, as the voiceover said at the beginning, the police, the media, nobody talk about the case because they are embarrassed and because they don't know what happened really. And doesn't make sense, and it's fantastic because of that. And I'm in love with the idea of the witch and this power that she's trying to gain in order to stay alive. I love this idea in how she's cruel with the kid. She's super cruel with the kid. It's horrible. I love the way the kids, they destroy her at the end. The scene is both spectacular and funny and gruesome, because you see those people having breakfast at home, and at some point this huge those, I don't know how many are, 20 kids, they're running toward the house, they destroy everything, they fall down, they stumble one into another, and they destroy everything. And it's funny, the scene is super funny. It's the witch running away. It's like an old fairy tale, that it's gruesome but it's funny, and that it has this weird sense of reward, because when the kid tear her apart, you're kind of yes you're kind of yes, destroy her. You're like supporting the kids, and it's fantastic. But at the same time, it's a very bitter end, because they're not going back to normality. And the other thing that I like is that we see that the main character has a bully in school, and that kid at the very end is Josh Brolin's kid. So the kid, we follow this father. He wants to find his kid, and he's sleeping in his room, and he sleeps into his bed with the Batman covers, the Batman sheets and stuff like that. And then he's the bully. You go like, yeah, damn it. Because in a way you kind of go, what, that kid was kind of a jerk. But anyway, he's the son of our main character, the hero of the movie. I love that. I love as well even the scene at the gas station. Another example of comedy that it's well used, and it's so weird in an horror but makes sense, because in any kind of it subvert expectation, because in any American movie, as a foreigner, this thing make me laugh all the time. Every time there is a gas station, a robbery or whatever, there is somebody with a shotgun under the counter every time. In this case, the guy doesn't have even a Mountain Dew to throw at the guy that's trying to kill the teacher, Julia Garner. He just stays there, and this crazy scene happens, and then she's bolting off the gas station, and after Josh Brolin smashed the guy into the fridge, and he goes like, "Off my store, get off my store," and she's like, "Why don't you help me?" And I was like, yeah, the whole movie theater start laughing, because right, why don't you help her? Because everybody was expecting, okay, the guy has a shotgun, is gonna shoot him. Instead, no, because of course I believe that many store, it's not like the Far West. Many people in the US, they works in a gas station, stuff like that, they don't have a shotgun under the counter. I mean, would be very terrifying, the opposite. But anyway, it's a cliche, it's a trope. They are subverting that thing, and it's very funny also because of that, but also because the scene is very well built, and after that there is something super terrifying, and it's amazing. I mean, I believe the movie, it's super well built. I love how they build the whole thing. The use of comedy, the use of terror. I like it's a very well told horror story, and I love the whole thing. I think some people won't like it because they want to see, because I think it's a misconception. I want to see a horror has to be scary the whole thing, and I think it doesn't work. I mean, in some cases you can be frightened and unsettled for the whole thing, but it's not a basic rule. It's not like a ground zero of how horror they are supposed to be built. It's not like that. I believe that's a misconception. Sometimes you have everything, because you gotta kind of believe to stories that are more grounded in a way. Let's say grounded, but more believable in the sense that are relatable in some level. So I believe I like this system, and I believe Weapons, it's a brilliant movie. So well done. I'm looking forward to see Resident Evil at this point, because second great movie, loved it, and I'm looking forward for Resident Evil. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was longer than the usual. We talk about all the stuff, but this is it. Vote the podcast, share it. See you next time. Bye bye.